You and Jill, I
Yeah.
think, had just started dating. Candace and I had just moved in together. We were staying at
Yep.
my place in St. James. I think you were coming in town. I may get the details of this wrong. Correct me if I'm wrong, but you had to come back to Manitoba before you went back to Vancouver in training camp
Yes.
for logistical reasons.
Yeah.
Stayed at my place, and I've told this story very veiled, but the fact that in the transition of all that, here's the deal that's getting signed and whatnot, you kind of knew what the numbers were. It wasn't, the first thing wasn't, okay, where are we going to party or what am I going to buy? It was, I'm on my phone with my financial advisor, and it was, what do I need to put away to make sure that I'm okay until the end of my life?
Yeah.
And that was one thing that always impressed me about you was your Ivy League mentality of making sure, because that's a very small percentage of guys that realize that this may end tomorrow or it may go on for 15 years, and no one really knows that answer. Most guys think the latter, but it's the guys that really think this could end tomorrow. I got to make sure I'm okay, and I give you all the credit because you are in a minority in that category.
Well, I appreciate that, and I'll have to give the credit to my Swiss father, who was very shrewd and conservative, and it was always, he worked hard in his life and he made a good amount of money, but he was always very careful about it. He never lived outside of his means or got flashy things, maybe a couple here and there, but as an upbringing, we never had more than we needed in that sense. So I think he taught my brother and I both like how to live conservatively if we have to, and just get what we need and want, and enjoy the rest. But that's a good memory because I think I was supposed to be on the team that year. They're like, you're the backup. So Jill and I, good memory, had just started dating. So she's visiting me in Vancouver, and literally at the end of training camp, out of nowhere, they're like, hey, we're gonna have to send you down on paper for a day or two just for like cap reasons or the roster, and once the roster's set, then we're going to call you back up. It's not a big deal. You're not going to Manitoba. You just have to go and get on a plane. But, my girlfriend's visiting me for like 4 more days. So it's like, okay, well, now what? I'm not going to leave you here in Vancouver. So we got her a ticket and she hopped on with me. And fortunately enough, I met up with these guys and was able to hang with them. And it's, the financial advisor, it's a huge part of an athlete's life. I mean, I think you guys know this, but a lot of people, your career earnings kind of go up as you get older, right? You start low and then you build and build, and then hopefully you hit a level that you maintain as you increase into your later life. Hockey and sports, it's you start up here and you slowly you might go up, but then you have a precipitous drop off at the age of 35 or 40 when you hopefully have half your life left. So I think that was impressed upon myself and my wife, obviously, early on that, hey, guys, like, let's keep putting it away. So that when you're done playing, you don't have to go do something you don't want to do. If you want to go do something and add on, that's great. But this, your portfolio, whatever you save throughout your career, hopefully will kick off enough that it gives you a bit of a safety net in retirement. And again, I was blessed to have earned more money than I ever could imagine, at that point when I was with you in Winnipeg all those years ago. So that's become a little bit easier. But yeah, it is the foresight. I would get emails from my advisor all the time about like the broke, like the broke series of guys who went bankrupt and spent all their money. And it's a slippery slope, man. It's, you hate to say it, but like, you get used to a certain lifestyle. You get paychecks rolling in at a certain amount, and you kind of live that way. And then all of a sudden they stop or they go down. It's like, oh, we have to make a pretty significant adjustment to our life. And it sounds silly at that level of income, but for anybody, if you're making X amount, all of a sudden it gets cut in half, like you still have to make that adjustment because you've been used to living and spending a certain amount of money to maintain your life. So it is a bit of an awakening for everybody. And, even for us, we had to, make some changes in lifestyle because we can't just keep spending money the way we were when I was at my peak of earning. And we both understand that. And we've been slowly sort of ratcheting down and simplifying our lives because all the extra stuff adds up pretty quickly. So we're getting used to that and totally fine with it. We have everything we need, thankfully. But as you said, Dave, our financial advisor has been a big part of that.
I was going to ask if you had any specifics on that. I know you mentioned like ratcheting down and kind of like, pulling back some of the finances. Like, is there anything specific, like advice-wise, like things that you pulled back going from like playing full-time to now with the NHL Network and that same, income isn't coming in?
Yeah, I mean, it sounds silly, but you play in New Jersey, so we had a house there because I just long contract with them. We have a lake house in New Hampshire where Jill's family's been forever that we'd spend some summers in, and then we had a house in Boston and where we're both from. So it's like all of a sudden you're maintaining and operating 3 homes, and it's like okay, we don't need that. We can consolidate that and have the lake house and wherever else we are, something like that. It sounds ridiculous to say out loud for most people, but like that, it's just. You get so used to moving every 9 months. You're at the lake, you're in Boston, you're back to Jersey. It's sort of like it's just easier to have places to lay your head and rent out and do all that. So that's one area, and also just like the extraneous expenditures. Sometimes things slip between the cracks, or you kind of lose track of memberships or clubs or signups or things you've been doing in different places you live, and all of a sudden you're like, holy crap, I'm paying $200 a month to Equinox in Jersey, and we moved like a year ago from Jersey, like let's cut that out, so it's just things you sort of lose track of when you move around so much, because that's the other part. And Dave, like when you're a nomad a bit and you move a lot, it's like easy to lose sight of things. Or, hey, we have two places, let's buy one of each for each place. And all of a sudden you're like, okay, can we, not do that and just have one that we bring back and forth, or, just we don't need it here, but we need it there. So, it's a bit of a vague or a broad answer, but just sort of, like I said, just consolidating and streamlining your life, because again, it's easy to sort of be like, all right, we'll just have one of everything everywhere we live, and then we don't have to worry about it. And all of a sudden you move from one house and shut it down. You're like, oh, now we have like two of everything. Can we sell these things? Can we get rid of that? Can we, eliminate this from our lives? And again, as you get older, for me, I'm not as into suits, or, I never was a watch guy, and I never got like those expensive watches a lot of guys got, car wise, like, all right, do I need this kind of car? Can I just get a pickup truck and be totally fine with that? It's just things like that are somewhat of status symbols when you play, that as you get older and you have a little more perspective, you're like, yeah, I don't need the fancy car. I can just get a, a Jeep and just beat around in that. And I'll be just fine. So, I think your life and perspective changes as you get older as well.
I think I'm still paying for defunct OnlyFans accounts that I signed up for years ago. I don't think they're even active anymore.
Your own or somebody else's?
Mine too, yeah.
Yeah. Don't forget about that.
What was the first thing you bought with your first NHL contract, Cory?
I did buy a car, that 4Runner, Dave, that survived Winnipeg somehow. It didn't have a block heater in it. There were days where I was like, this thing's not going to start.
Tell me you still have it.
Nah, we gave it to my sister-in-law, and I think it hit the couple 100,000-mile point and finally kicked the bucket. But again, just being my father, I had a good signing bonus when I signed, but like I was like, all right, what's a smart, sensible car to get that if I show up at training camp, all the guys won't be like, look at this a-hole with the Range Rover or something like that. So, I bought a Toyota 4Runner, and it was great. It was awesome. I love that car. So that was one thing, and then another was, I think I took a bunch of buddies. Like we would do like kind of guys weekends or whatever. So we rented a house somewhere and just did like a boys trip for all my buddies who sort of were supporting me my whole career. So little things like that. Again, I'm not a big like jewelry watch guy. I'm not into like fancy shoes. Probably bought a few suits just to up my game a little bit from Joseph A. Bank. No disrespect. But yeah, you walk into an NHL locker room and there's certain expectations, like, oh, what are you wearing? Like, why are you wearing that? Or, oh, do you have this yet? And you're like, I don't know. My financial guy told me that when I got my Amex, I was like, what the hell's an Amex? He's like, American Express. I was like, oh, okay, that's what that is. So I was a little naive to some of that. And it's, again, it is a fun, exciting time. And, you do things at that age that you wouldn't normally do. So it's kind of like, all right, have a little fun here, splurge a little bit, but be smart and be sensible and everything in moderation.
Well, I'll tell you, you were smart about spending money on that amazing wedding you had out in Cape Cod. Oh my God, that was a party.
Hey, a lot of people came a long way for that. And I think because we got engaged in April and we didn't want to wait a year plus to get married the following off season. So we were just like, let's just get married this summer. And obviously when you call venues on 3 months notice, there aren't a lot of Saturday dates available in desirable locations. So we found this awesome spot that could do a Friday wedding. So we were like, all right, as penance for making everyone come to Cape Cod on a Friday, which is basically like trying to get to hell and back, we were like, we're just going to open bar it, blow it out, make sure everyone has a great time and have fun and celebrate. So I'm glad you enjoyed it, because that was a lot of fun for us. And I know a lot of people, you get so caught up in your wedding, you don't even get to enjoy it. So we got married on a Friday. We did a pool party, lobster bake Saturday with a beach Saturday night, and then the brunch Sunday. So it kind of became a whole weekend affair. And like I said, we just want to make sure everyone had a good time and we're nice and lubed up the whole weekend so they could enjoy it.
I think my favorite point was when I came to you, I was like, so is this a special place for you? Like, did you come here as a kid being a Boston guy? You're like, no, it's the only place that had an available Saturday.
Exactly. We're both north of Boston. You can never get to the Cape from there. So we were mostly New Hampshire and north. So again, it was the only place that could pretty much take us on short notice. And it was great. The venue was awesome. So we had a great time there.
You get a nice little discount too on the Friday wedding compared to the Saturday wedding, right?
Yeah, I think so.
There's that financial planning coming in right there.
Yeah, I'll have to check my receipts to see if that was the case. But yeah, anything you can get at that point.
You're talking about like other guys like being a little bit more flashy with cash. Was there anything like where you felt the peer pressure of, okay, a lot of guys are spending money on this or a lot of guys are investing in that? I think that's maybe not on target with my financial advisors advising, and like maybe you're getting swayed one way or the other?
Nobody put like overt pressure on you. Some guys would come in with like investment opportunities, like, oh, hey, check out my buddy's this. They're like, oh, I got these penny stocks, or, like, oh, my uncle's got a farm. And it's like, I don't know. It doesn't sound right.
Straight out like Wolf of Wall Street. This is the best thing coming across my desk in the last 6 months, John. You got 2 seconds?
Exactly. And usually it wasn't guys. It was outsiders maybe, or people who like sort of got a hold of you or knew somebody who tried to, figure out if you want to invest in something. Most of them I think were good intention. But even I had good friends who had, who I trusted and liked, but, they had opportunities. I was like, I don't know if that's for me, So, I was pretty conservative with that kind of stuff. But, I think some guys it's just like they give you a hard time if you're not driving a nice car. We had a kid in Jersey, it wasn't me, but he'd show up in his Honda Accord, and my other buddy would be like, "Hey man, when you get a new car?" He's like, "Oh, I love my Accord." He's like, "Oh, I bet you do, but like when are you gonna get a new car?" Like seriously, you're in the NHL, like get a new car, that kind of thing. So guys were pretty good about it. But there's one thing when you're younger, especially that Vancouver team I started with, we were an older team. We had a lot of late 20s, early 30s was our core, the Sedin twins, Luongo, Bieksa, Kessler, Ham Hughes, all those guys. And they were all super generous. So as a young guy, you're in the league and, you're making a good amount of money, but, people realize you have taxes, you have escrow, you have agent fees. So if you're, I was making 900,000 my first 2 years in Van, which is a lot of money, but that year it was after the financial collapse. So the escrow was through the roof. So it was like 20% of escrow plus British Columbia taxes plus, so you're clearing about 40% of your paycheck. So it's like, and guys know how expensive Vancouver is. So if you try to live,
You're welcome for enjoying this clip, and you're welcome to click on more of them right here. There's lots of content available, new podcast every Sunday. Sign up for the Patreon page as well, because that gets you what? Perks. That's it.